Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Von Awesome here, doing a video, as you could even guess it from my mat, about cat planeswalkers. We're going to do a video on Lord Windgrace, and the deck that you get with the Commander Pack Nature's Vengeance. I want to go through what this guy does, what he does well, and then eventually talk about what I did to the deck, how you can change it, and my thoughts for the future. So as we can see here on Papa Windgrace, the big card that they give you in the pack, this guy's pretty stacked. He does what he does it very well. You got your +2 ability where you get to discard a card and then draw a card. If you discarded a land, you get to draw an additional, so it gets you 2 draws every time additional to your 1 that you get per turn. Your -3 allows you to return 2 target land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Note that that does not say tapped, so this is a pretty fucking juicy ability if you want to use it correctly. The -11, a little lackluster in my opinion. It can do quite a bit in Commander format, but destroy 6 target non-land permanents, create 6 2/2 cat warrior creature tokens with Forest Walk. The Forest Walk part is probably the best of those tokens, but Windgrace is just going to sit here for now. And I gotta say, this deck is... so first off, we're using green, red, black, and it does what those colors are supposed to do very well. First off, this is a land-heavy deck. I want to go over the cards, at least the cards that I kept, that help the mana ramp run the way it should. So first off, every single time, Soul Ring, if you have it in there, it is beautiful. It'll get what you need at a 1-drop, giving you 2 colorless mana. We have Cultivate. Cultivate is a great 3-drop, 1 land in the hand, 1 land on the battlefield, just like it. Harrow, sack a land, then you get to put 2 on the battlefield, not tapped. Far Wanderings is another one. Sorcery speed, while Harrow is an instant. Take 1 land if you hold Threshold, which means 7 or more cards in your graveyard. Then you get to instead take 3 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield, tap, shuffle your library. 3 lands from your library for 3 is huge. You're not just only relying on instants and sorceries, however. You've got cards like, where did he just go? Oh, just try to get away from me. Yavimaya Elder. This is a 3-drop card that will, when he dies, I can return a, oh my goodness, it is not wanting to come to focus. There we go. When Yavimaya Elder dies, I can search my library for 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put them into my hand, shuffle my library. This is in the hand, but still, it allows you to get the drops. You can also pay the 2, sack him yourself, draw a card, then also get his ability on the stack. Very powerful. 2/1 for 3, and it involves 2 green, so it's not something that you want to be playing a lot of. Things that have crazy amount of devotion to 1 color, you gotta watch out for that. Having said that, this is a card that has 2 devotion to green as well. Avenger of Zendikar. This card is single-handedly a bomb in the stack. When it enters the battlefield, you get a 0/1 plant for each land you control. Then your landfall will allow you to put a 1/1 counter on each plant. So super powerful card. Really a force to be reckoned with. Other totally notable landfall cards that you have in a deck like this. Let me just put these guys over here. These 3, all amazing. We'll start with the cheapest. Retreat to Agra. Landfall has 2 different abilities, one of which is 1/0 and Death Touch to any creature. And you can have potentially deadly plants. The other one is a extort tax kind of effect. Each opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. I've done this effect 4, maybe even 5 times in a single turn. This thing is a killer, needs to be dealt with, but at 3 cost, and it's only a landfall trigger. It's real hard to get your opponents to go all in on something like this. So you can actually hold it for a lot longer than you typically would for a card like that. Going up in expense, we've got this bad boy right here. A flying 5/4 dragon. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, make an 0/2 dragon egg. When the egg dies, it makes a 2/2 dragon creature token. This is, luckily, you get tokens when you buy this pack, if that's what you do so choose. Here we have the dragon egg. Let's see if I can spread it enough that I can get the camera to want to focus. Nope, it's gonna be annoying this whole time. All right, so when this creature dies, create a 2/2 red flying creature token. You flip the dragon egg over. What? Now you have a dragon. The dragon has fire breathing. Pay 1 red. Give him 1/0 until end of turn. Or focus once in your life. Nope. Nope. Doesn't want to. That's fine. We don't care. So what else? Not only do you get landfall triggers based on you putting out lands from your hand to the battlefield, there's plenty of good lands that do the same effect, which is very interesting. Like here we have Jund Panorama. It will tap for a colorless, but you can pay 1 to search for a swamp, mountain, or forest. Put it onto the battlefield tapped. This is not a land that I would like really just clamor for. I mean, it's okay. It's basically a Terramorphic Expanse that can also be tapped as a waste. Neat. And it really can't grab every other color land. It just can grab 3 of the 5. Also neat. But when you pair this with life gain or damage or creating tokens, all that good stuff that happens with your landfall triggers, this thing is beefy. Going up the list, same card, same everything nearly, except for this guy's going to enter tapped. Can still play as a waste, but now has a 2 cost. Sacrifice Myriad Landscape, search your library for 2 basic land cards that share a land type. Put them onto the battlefield tapped. Shuffle your library. This is the mama version of that same card. Now we go to Papa version. This guy enters untapped. Can still play for a waste. For 3 and a green, tap it. You could sack it. Search your library for 2 basic land cards. They don't even have to share a type. Put them onto the battlefield tapped. Shuffle your library. These are lands that just totally get the most benefit out of your landfall drops. Very good lands. Here we have other cards that kind of fit the same motif of one another inside the deck. We got Mountain Valley and Rocky Tar Pit. Enter tapped. You can search for basically the colors that this thing equals out to. Mountain Valley, obviously, mountain and forest. Rocky Tar Pit, swamp and mountain. And put them onto the battlefield untapped. These cannot be tapped for mana themselves, but it is a land that fetches a land. Very neat. Very good cards, in my opinion, for a deck like this. Temple of the False God, you're going to have a lot of mana flipping around all over the place. Any mana that could tap for 2 colorless. This is a double waste scenario. If you control 5 or more lands, super easy to get to 5 or more. Speaking of 5 or more, we have Scoop Mob here. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 5, oh my goodness, this lack of any type of, there we go. I'm just going to be real close. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 5 or more lands, put 4 1/1 counters on Scoop Mob. This thing gets huge quickly. There are other cards that have similar effects to this. Sadly, this is the only one that really made it to the deck vanilla. You want other ones, you gotta add them. We'll get into that. You may already know the card I'm talking about. If you do, leave a comment. At the time you found out the card I'm mentioning, it's a token creator, and she is incredibly powerful. Went over Yavimaya already. Speaking those 3 lands we talked about earlier, those go to the graveyard afterwards. This guy, the Turn Timber Sour, will totally benefit from that. Whenever 1 or more land cards that are put into the graveyard from anywhere, create a 0/1 plant creature token. He also has this caveat that I just totally discredit as an ability. Sacrifice 3 creatures, return target land card from your graveyard to your hand. You could, but why would you? Unless there's a board wipe coming. Ah, got me again, me. This thing does actually allow you to pay several green to wipe all your creatures away, get lands in your hand. Could be good. I see the point. Thank you, Turn Timber Sour, for proving me wrong during myself. So this deck is not just about creating. It's not just about gaining the lands. A deck like this has a lot of destruction. Jund is great at board wipes and wipe-esque effects. We're going to start talking about those now. Not quite a wipe. This is a great kill card, though. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. It also has an Awaken, and you're going to have so many lands that you're not even going to care to make a 4/4 elemental creature token out of your land. Personally, don't like Awaken. I have a lot of problems with Awaken. The land creature that it makes is an elemental, but it doesn't really have any effects. It has haste, which is cool. If it had Shroud or even Hexproof, I would be way more down with Awaken. I would be down with the Sickness, but no, sadly, that's not part of the deal, and it really just it sucks. I get sad that your lands can get destroyed. However, Turn Timber Sour says if your land dies, you get some stuff. Maybe this is better than I'm trying to say. If you like a card like this, tell me I'm totally wrong in the comments. I'd love that. So now we have two very similar cards to one another. Savage Twister and Lavalanche. Savage Twister just being the Gruul equivalent. Lavalanche being the Jund equivalent. Pay X. This deals X damage to each creature. This one over here deals X damage to each creature. Target player or planeswalker, and each creature that player or planeswalker's controller controls. So this one will actually damage players as well as everything they own, or destroy that annoying planeswalker that has a wall of garbage blocking it. This guy will do a little less for one less. It's nice to have both of them. Don't try to discredit Savage Twister because, you know, with two of them in there, you got a 1 in 50 chance of pulling either, basically. You got Decimate. It's a little bit of a harder kill card to pull off. It's another Gruul scenario. Actually, even the picture looks like it's from Ravnica, which is hilarious. Destroy target artifact, target creature, target enchantment, and target land. The "and" is the part that I want to really emphasize here because you need each of these targets to make this card work. If there is no enchantments, you are not decimating. If it is your enchantment, guess which one you're decimating. This is a risky card and becomes increasingly easier in multiplayer scenarios. I, for one, totally like this card. I wanted to give a shout out to Deathcap Ritual while we're talking about wipes and kills. At the beginning of each end step, if a creature died this turn, you may draw a card. No matter whose creature died, no matter what turn it was, end steps, you draw. This is one of the best Morbids. Seriously, like that ability is choice. Love it. Great card. That card has helped me keep something in my hand at least through very long games, especially in multiplayer scenarios. While we're still on the subject, I just wanted to. Oh, never mind. I actually have. Okay, so right here we have. There's a lot of kill. I didn't realize this was also just kill cards. For any number of opponents, destroy target permanent that player controls. Windgrace's Judgment. This is specific to the set, to this deck. For 5 in instant speed, destroying something everybody owns. Non-land, of course. This is huge. Love that card. Consigned to Dust. It's a little on the expensive side, but it both targets artifacts and enchantments, and it'll target from any number of players. You just have to keep doing the strive, and honestly, 3 per destruction is not crazily expensive. This card is extremely accessible to this deck because of the sheer land that you will have in a deck like this. Acidic Slime. This is one of my favorite cards of all time. For 5, you get a 2/2 Death Toucher. So basically, you can kill any creature. But when he enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. The or land is huge. If they have a land with an enchantment attached to it, destroy the land. Screw the enchantment. Yeah, it's just this card is so good. I love aiming for lands. Go for broke. If they can't cast, then they can't continue to play. It shuts down decks. It's very fun. Chain Reaction. This is a baby blasphemous act, if you're familiar with it. For only 4, you get to do X damage, where X is the amount of creatures on the battlefield. This is a great wipe, especially if you have plant tokens and a lot of other little things going on. This can potentially kill off Krenko mob bosses and all those other different decks that involve trying to spam out as much creatures as possible. So what happens? What happens if everybody gets board wiped? You got no more creatures on the battlefield. Well, luckily a deck like this has plenty of ability to gain things, benefits, if you will, from the graveyard. Oh crap! I'm bad at this. So one more. This guy was in a different pile. Gaze of Granite. Destroy each non-land permanent. This thing is a wipe amongst wipes. 2 blacks and a green. Pay X. Just clear the board of everything but lands. And when you are the commander of lands, this doesn't really affect you. Make sure your hand is plentiful, then just destroy everything. Good times. That's a great one. So as I was saying, everything's starting to get wiped. What do? Stitch Together. This is a great card. You just filled up your own graveyard with your own stuff. Now, why don't you return target creature from your graveyard to your hand? If there's enough stuff in the graveyard, then you can potentially, if this would ever in the history, there we go, use the Threshold ability to return, getting all over the place, return target card from your graveyard to the battlefield instead if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard. This card's awesome for 2 black. You're getting a lot of lands going into your own graveyard as well. Create a black and green worm creature token for each land in your graveyard with the Retrace ability. Discard a land, recast it for 5, sorcery speed, make a bunch of worms. This is fun. Carnal Horde Worm, 7 cost, 6/6 Trampler. Oh, it's a worm. It has trample. Take my word for it. It also says that when it deals damage to an opponent, you may return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Target card. Yeah, that's anything. Grab a kill card again. Keep just using them to use them. Keep putting Stitch Together in your hand so you could pay 2 to play out a creature onto the battlefield. To play out a creature onto the battlefield in what speed? Sorcery? Still. Very good. 2 cards, similar effects. We've got Grisly Salvage, and Grapple with the Past. Grisly Salvage, obviously, in Golgari, it becomes a little bit harder to cast, so they get a little bit more benefit. Reveal the top 5 or top 3 cards of your library. You may put a creature or a land from among them into your hand. The rest go into your graveyard. Grapple the Past is a little different because it considers all the cards that are already in the graveyard when you get to pick one. Both these cards, instant speed, can potentially get you to the threshold mark, or just load up your graveyard. Maybe if you want to do Windgrace's -3 ability and take 2 lands, put them onto the battlefield. So you can get landfall triggers. I mean, the amount of comboing out that all these cards do with one another is so good. Once again, 2 more cards, very similar abilities. Soul of Innistrad, Moldgraph Monstrosity. Soul of Innistra's a Death Touch 6/6 for 6. Pay 5, return 3 creatures from your graveyard to your hand. Or maybe he's in your graveyard. Well, then just pay 3 exile, or pay 5, exile him from the graveyard, do the same ability. Moldgraph Monstrosity, however, is an 8/8 trampler for 7. Pretty good value there. When he dies, exile it, then return 2 target creatures from your graveyard to the battlefield. These are creatures helping creatures. Trying to keep the cycle of life going. That's the whole Jund motif. So I wanted to spend some time to talk about what I cut from this deck. What cards didn't quite make it for me. So we're going to go off right ahead with Blood Tracker. This is a beautiful vampire. 4 cost 2/2, flyer, pay 1 black and 2 life, put a 1/1 counter on him. When he leaves the battlefield, you draw a card for each 1/1 counter on it. I took this card out, even though it is beautiful, crazy good draw, because there is not enough life gain to support a guy like this. He goes to the buffet table on your life total, and there is no way to make it back. I mean, shy of the retreat to, is it Kazandu? Which retreat was that? Let's actually look this up, just so you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Hagra. Retreat to Hagra will gain you 1 life per land drop. That you cannot possibly outdo 2 damage per black to get up enough 1/1 counters. Well, maybe don't go ham on the ability. Well, if you can't go ham on the ability, then why is this card in there? Not that good, in my opinion. However, my opinion is just that. You might not agree. You can do whatever you want. Individuality is the name of the game. Zendikar Incarnate. It's a star 4, prefer 4, and his power is equal to the number of your lands you control. Well, Mike Von Awesome, you just said that there's a lot of lands in this deck. Why would you take this out? This card doesn't have trample. There's no way to gain trample out of any cards inside the current deck the way the state it is. The fact that it's an elemental doesn't even matter. And that's great that it has super high power, but if this is just going to get chump blocked until something can kill it, or enough damage can chump block it to get to the 4 toughness, which is not very high. This card, sadly, was doomed when it came out. Maybe it's in this pile, huh? So while we're talking about Zendikar Incarnate, I did want to bring up Rubble Hulk. This is a 6 cost star. Both land, power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. It's 2 more expensive, but this is going to be a 6/6 when it enters, most likely. Unless you're Soul Ringing, then it's going to be a 4/4. Still super. It's just better. It's just better in every way. Maybe it takes a little bit more to chump block this thing to death. It does not get trample, so there's still that, but you can blood rush this and just throw it on a worm. Screw it. Let the worm get +6/6 or whatever. This card is the better version, and this is what managed to stay in the deck, not Incarnate in all of his not greatness. Same exact problem with Moonlight Bargain. 5 cost instant speed. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Anyone that you want to keep, you pay 2 life. If you don't want to keep it, let it go to the graveyard. That's fine. Not enough health gain, life effects to make this card work the way that they intended to. Sakura Tribelder, 2 cost, 1/1. Search your library for a basic land card. If you sacrifice him, put him on the battlefield tapped, shuffle your library. This is goes onto the battlefield effect. This is very good. I'm just basically treating Yavimaya Elder as the better version of this, and I'm discounting this because of it. Sakura Tribelder, Super good, hard cut to make. You got Forge of Heroes. Choose target commander that entered the battlefield this turn. Put a 1/1 counter on it if it's a creature. A loyalty counter on it if it's a planeswalker. I don't care for Lord Windgrace's ultimate. I'm just gonna say it. This thing is colorless. It is not a basic land. Basic lands are kind of they hold more power because while I'm casting Harrow, while I'm casting all those different land grabbing spells, I want to be able to make sure that I'm gonna never fail to find a target. This thing is just it's not that good. One loyalty counter is not enough. If it was 2 loyalty counters, I'd be all over this. This is a waste, and I treat this card as a waste. Talk about both these at the same time. Bojuka Bog, Forgotten Cave, all the different forgotten lands, the ones that enter the battlefield tapped and then allow you to cycle. I don't like these. I am not a fan of these. This ability is not that good to me. Bojuka Bog is a different one that enters tapped as well. This one's very hard to get rid of to justify it because it does exile an entire graveyard. Certain decks, taking this out is a death sentence. Most decks that I fight, personally speaking, don't care about graveyard interaction. So Bojuka Bog is a no-go for me. Explosive Vegetation, same difference. I have a 3-cost equivalent of this, in my opinion. I've got a land that can do the same effect. I do not need Explosive Vegetation. By the time I get to cards like this, I already am running very low on targets to find with cards like this. It becomes dead in the hand. Same with Seer's Sundial. When a land enters the battlefield, you can pay 2, draw a card. My land is too busy doing other things. I don't need this. This is too much for me. It's same difference. It's like I've got different things I could do for 2, different land grabbing abilities. By the time that I get the landfall for this, I may not even have a target. I need instant gratification or not at all. Baron Moore, not great. Bojuka Gardener, the 2/1 that you can put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. I am sorry for this horrible. There we go. If you control 10 or more lands, flip him. Okay, you flip him. He becomes a 3/3. Create X green elemental token where X is the number of lands you control. For 6 on a tap ability, not bad. You're already board wiping everybody enough that this is not gonna last. The tokens it makes are not gonna last. They're gonna be huge if you could ever get it to work. Personally, I thought a 2/1 was too much of a death sentence. If he had haste, or maybe if it was a 0 cost or a 1 cost to put a land onto the battlefield, something else. I don't know. I don't know what this card needed to be able to survive itself in this deck, but it's not for me. Explore, draw a card, play an additional land, not for me. Xantcha. One of the specific cards that came into this deck, I love this card as a card. Enters the battlefield, somebody else gets control of it, they're not allowed to attack you. Anybody can pay 3 to make that player lose 2 life. They get to draw a card. And this thing has to attack every turn. So in multiplayer games, this is a brutal commander. This will get a commander damage kill fairly easily. I like this card a lot. A lot actually. Just sadly it doesn't do anything for me as far as a land gain. There's a lot of cards that will directly try to attack this card in the worst way. Not for me. Gyrus, the Walker of Corpses. He's a Hydra. I usually don't say no to Hydras. I think you'd be dumb to do that, but in a deck like this where I have too many effects that either wipe out everything or get things back from my graveyard, I don't need his ability. His ability is just to grab another creature and put it onto the graveyard. Put it on the battlefield from the graveyard as a token, then exile it. So I don't even get to keep the thing that I bring back. Sadly, there was some keywords in this card that made it not as good as it could have been. If there was a way that this thing can gain additional counters, then that would be amazing. If the power of the creature that I brought back also powered up Gyrus, whatever his name is, this would be a great card. It missed the mark by a couple keyword problems. We're just gonna start banging out these. A menace or a lieutenant ability to cause an opponent to lose 3 life. I don't care about this. It's a 3/1. It's not gonna survive anything that I could possibly wipe with. It's not great. Clash of Rhino Beetles, a 5/5 for 5. If you own 10 lands, then it becomes a 15/15 for 5 that has trample. This one was a very hard cut. I can understand if you want to keep this. I almost did. It barely didn't make it, I assure you. Centaur Vinecrasher. It enters the battlefield with the number of 1/1 counters on it equal to the number of land cards in all graveyards. That's very powerful. Potentially. When a land card is put into the graveyard from anywhere, you may pay 2 green. If you do, return this from your graveyard to your hand. Another hard cut. I always had the brilliant luck of getting this guy out way too early and not having enough 1/1 counters for him. This is the same problem that Overgrowth has currently in Standard. I just don't see it really giving a lot of 1/1 counters under certain circumstances. If it doesn't give an ability or an effect, if it doesn't let you pull lands from the graveyard or do something else, you could really miss me with it. It doesn't mean anything to me. Same difference. It's a 4/4 for 6. It gets +4/+4. You could almost reliably get 1 land a turn, making this kind of an 8/8 for 4 a little bit. If you get multiple lands out, this guy can become bigger. He does not come with trample. The lack of trample took him right out of my deck. Borderland Explorer enters the battlefield. Each player may discard a card. Each player who discarded a card may search their library for basic land, reveal it, put it into their hand. I don't want to help anybody else. Not in Jund. Jund already kind of is a greedy color set. Plus, I don't understand the cards that help everybody. I would rather just help myself in any way possible. Hunting Wilds only finds forests. It's a little rough. And I hate turning my lands into creatures because then they'll just die and I'll get wiped and then I'll be out of lands and then I'll lose. I don't get it. It's not for me. Not an ability I care to use. Fairhaven Elf. I already have enough 3-cost grab a lands. I've got 3-cost grab 2 lands. I don't need this. Not a 1/1. Fury Storm. I don't see enough things that I would want to cast that would make Fury Storm worth it. Even like just the red equivalent of this card is better. I don't know. I don't really see myself playing an Izzet deck inside of this or whatever. This is a weird card to have in here. It doesn't really fit the deck. So I said no. Cool. Well, that's all that. Now I want to go through what I added, what I thought would just make this deck even better than it was. I don't really know a way to do this that makes a lot of sense, so I'm literally just going to try to crawl up the mana curve as I go. The cheaper ones are cheap and delicious. They're very easy to try to convince somebody to put in a deck because they don't really cost anything, so it's fairly simple to do it that way. This is gonna be too much work for me, so I'm not gonna actually worry about it too much. Note as well, I'm not trying to put cards in this deck that's going to make it win in one turn. If you're looking for a win in one turn type deck style, this is not the video for you. I play pretty competitively with my friends and other groups. That's what I'm building for. That's how I like to build my decks. I don't build with the thought in mind of trying to destroy everybody else instantly or win in a turn. It's not for me. So here we have Cabal Coffers. Great card. Doesn't actually make mana itself, but can get you a lot in a matter of turns. Blooming Marsh. Enters untapped if you control 2 or more lands. 2 or fewer, sorry. And goes for 2 lands. This card, I'm shocked, was not in the original deck. Here we go. This card is the Scoot Mob yin to yang scenario. It's only a 1/1 for 1. If you own 6 or more lands, you make a 5/5 red dragon every upkeep. It's got flying. I mean, this card is huge because you're gonna get that amount of lands in no time. This thing is amazing, incredible. I would put it in decks that don't even fit the fucking land problem. Just ooh. Braid of Fire, because I'm a horrible person. Back in the day, they used to have burn, mana burn, and this kind of card would kill you over a set of turns. That's no longer the case. So a card like Braid of Fire is just good. I don't know, this card. You add 1 red to your mana pool. The next turn you add 2 red, then you add 3 red, then you add 4 red. I mean, this will allow you to pay any amount for all of your X burn spells. This is a great card. Next we have Tireless Tracker. Land enters the battlefield under your control, allows you to investigate, which gives you a clue. Whenever you sacrifice a clue, you put a 1/1 counter on Tireless Tracker. He does all the work himself. You get a land, cool. Now play the land. Now sack the land. Now draw a card. Now he gets a 1/1 counter. Is it a land that you drew? Play the land. Like, this card is so good. It makes its own gravy, like I like to say. It's just very, very powerful card. Let's run through the 4 costs before I jump onto other stuff. Wonder how many of these cards you already noticed. Grave Pact. This card is a staple. If you're going to play black, if you're going to do a lot of board wipe stuff, if they have indestructible, doesn't matter. You could just board wipe them into oblivion because they have to sack after the wipe. If you got a lot of little creatures that don't matter to you, Yavimaya Elder is like the biggest kill card if you have a friggin' Grave Pact somewhere. Yeah, I love that card. Whip of Erebos. There you go. Gives all your creatures lifelink. That's the only part that I like to use. Past that, I guess that it can return a creature to the battlefield, gains haste, exile it at the beginning of the next end step. Exile it no matter where it would have gone. Only do it as a sorcery, so it's like not really a good blocking tool. I just like the life gain. Good card, decent card, legendary card. I don't know, I like it. Primarily because I like Aetherflux Reservoir as well. The more spells you cast, you get Storm effect with life gain. You can pay 50 life at any time and deal 50 damage to target creature or player. I don't know what kind of creature you would need to hit for 50, maybe a Hydra. But yeah, just nuke a player. End somebody's reign of terror completely with the Aetherflux Reservoir. Chandra Defiance, Torture Defiance. She's got mana gain. She's got damage dealing. She's got a lot of damage dealing. She's got the ability to look at the top card and potentially play it. This card is very good, especially if you have way more than enough lands to know what to do with. You're pretty much always going to be able to use any of these abilities. Great emblem. Whenever you cast a spell, the emblem deals 5 damage to target creature or player. Good stuff. Painful Quandary. I love Painful Quandary. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, the player loses 5 life unless he or she discards a card. This card alone will start to slowly dwindle out other players. And I put just enough life gain in this deck to not have to worry about any of this. Like, if they find a card that's worth casting, I will just try to gain life away from them. Very powerful card. Well, we're on it. Liliana Vess, Planeswalker with a problem. Her problem is she's just too good. Target player discards a card. Let's just start the hate. Search your library for a card, shuffle it, put that card on top of it. A semi-tutor is incredibly powerful, especially on a Planeswalker. Especially because you could do it twice before you have to do something else. Put all creature cards and all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. This thing can win a game. Also, I apologize for not sleeving these cards. I just wonder who's dying because of the fact. Tamiyo's Journal. It's another investigation type deal. The more clues, the merrier. If you have 3 clues, you get to tutor a card into your hand. I like this card. I think that it's pretty darn good. Nixilis, here is another Planeswalker that has way too much in his kit. His +1 is... Whoa. Goodness gracious. His +1 is draw a card, lose 1 life. Oh, already lost me. His -3 is destroy target creature. His -8 is get an emblem with whenever a player draws a card, you lose 2 life. So the emblem is incredibly good. Drawing a card and losing 1 life is hardly detrimental. And destroying a creature with no caveat as to what the creature has to have is immeasurably good. Great card. Great Planeswalker. Zyndakar's Royal. I'm very disappointed in this deck for not having it in the first place. It's got landfall where you just make a 2/2 green elemental. I don't know why they didn't use the landfall wording, but this card is extremely powerful. The Gitrog Monster. This is one of the few ways that you could actually take the lands on the battlefield and give them additional use. Whenever 1 or more land are put into the graveyard from anywhere, you get to draw a card. At the beginning of your upkeep, you have to sacrifice a land, or the Gitrog Monster. You get to play an additional land on every turn. It has Death Touch as a 6/6 for 5. You'd be really remiss not to put this in there. I know I have a lot of opinions here. This is not an opinion. This card needs to be in this deck. I like Seasons Past. You have enough kill cards of all different mana costs. You can easily fill your hand back up from 1 to 7 using mana costs 1 to 7. And plus this card doesn't even go away. If it's the last card, if you were getting milled out, you can continue to cast this card. Like, I don't know, it's crazy. It's very good. Speaking of all the kill cards that are going to be in your graveyard, at the beginning of each upkeep, you return an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard to your hand. Anytime you cast an instant or sorcery, Charmbreaker Devils gets +4/+0. It's a 4/4 for 6 that Deadbridge Chance. Is that the word? I think that's the word. Deadbridge Ritual? I can't remember the card. It constantly puts instants and sorceries in your hand, is the point. while you're doing all your board wipes, maybe you want a Death's Presence, get your power of the creature that died, turn it into 1/1 counters, give it to something else. It's basically creating a modular effect for all of your creatures. For 6, it's totally worth it for me. Holding with the Storm aspect, Sunbird's Evocation, anytime you cast a spell from your hand, you get to look at the next X cards, where X was the mana. CMC. Pay a different card that's that same CMC or less. Put the rest at the bottom of your library in a random order. Very powerful. Combustible Gear Hulk. Much like all the other Gear Hulks, any of them would fit in this deck that fit the color scheme. This one specifically has first strike as a 6/6, enters the battlefield, allows you to draw 3 cards or deal the CMC's worth in damage. I can guarantee that this card can do a minimum of 10 damage, unless you happen to get all lands or something. The damage output for this guy on entering battlefield is incredibly worth its cost, its price, the fact that it's an artifact and you don't really have very many in this deck. Now we get to the slightly more expensive guys. Just slightly. As an 11 cost, 15/15 Trampler. When he dies, you get 3/5/5 Tramplers, and he goes to the graveyard from anywhere. You shuffle it into your library. Worldspine Worm. Yeah, this is something that you can actually actively hard cast without much issue. Very hilarious, but it works. And just because I'm a horrible person, I put It That Betrays in here. This will allow you to get landfall triggers. This will give you new creatures. This will give you all kinds of good stuff. 11/11 for 12. It seems totally worth it to me. Annihilator 2. Good times. The deck has plenty of different things going on. I very much like it. It's got a nice speed to it. I would give a deck like this, like from the gate, probably a 4, maybe 5 out of 10 durability. Its ability to just handle wipes and stuff like that is pretty good. After I made changes to it, I would say that I got it up to about a 7. It doesn't really have a whole lot of things like Undying or anything like that nature, which would be totally helpful if you wanted to throw a Mikaeus in here. There's not very many humans, so everything's able to come back. If you wanted to attempt to give it Asceticism, an enchantment that can allow you to regenerate all your creatures, that might add to the durability of it. There's things you could do, is the point. As far as if it's lethality, it does a lot of different things, but it is not necessarily creating a couple large creatures to destroy somebody. Sometimes I've won with just sheer worms. I've won because of tick damage. I've won because of Aetherflux Reservoir, which almost doesn't count because I added that later. A deck like this has huge potentiality to win in a myriad of different ways. I don't think that you should ever really expect yourself to get a win the same way twice. I mean, it does a lot, and it does a lot really well. Speaking of which, its flexibility, I think, even out the gate, is extremely high. But you know that you're going to want to try to get lands every turn, so as long as you could do that, you're pretty golden. If I can continue to do things to this deck, I would add Omnath, potentially both of them, the one from the Preferred Zendikar one as well as the one from the newer one, because the old Omnath allows you to hold mana indefinitely. The new one allows you to get a 5/5 elemental for landfall triggers, and if an elemental dies, you get to ping out 3 damage to target creature or player. So definitely going to look into that. There's also a lot of crafty ways to get mana and card draw in black, sometimes at the expense of your own life. I think that it would help me to look into those, especially because I added some really hefty mana cost. But yeah, I will put up a deck list for everybody to see. And if you liked this video, a comprehensive guide, what I put in, what I took out, how I feel about certain cards. While we're on the topic of it, Thanatos is a beauty. This card is so very good. I'm sorry that I didn't mention it earlier. Being a 5/5 that allows all creatures forced to attack, it has vigilance, so it doesn't have to deal with the tap. Any creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, Thanatos starts getting 1/1 counters. As a 5/5 for 6 that will assuredly get up there, this card is beautiful. But no, I don't know. So, if you like the video, make sure to subscribe, make sure to like, comment, all that good stuff. And hopefully we'll see more of these kind of videos in the future. This has been Mike Von Awesome, at least his hands and his voice. I'm signing out. Have a good one.